Thank you very much for this opportunity. And as you could already hear from the introduction, I am going to talk about a civil initiative. I am representing this initiative, which we wanted to contribute to the transformation of the European Union, and it talks about what we expect of the European Union as well. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about member states and regions against globalization. This is the title I gave to my presentation. It's important to highlight from this regard that the national features of Europe are not only carried by the member states, not only represented by the member states, but also represented by several regions. For instance, what is the situation of Sacklerland? The situation of Sacklerland is what we were building on, but we were also looking for connections with other minorities. For instance, the Catalans in Spain, the Bretons in France, and we didn't foresee Brexit, but Scottish are a minority in the UK, so we also tried to find connections with them, and we tried to come up with a unified European terminology or unified European agenda of how these regions where significant minorities live could step up for their rights. These minorities can be considered cultural minorities in a regions. So, for example, if somebody looks at the map, looking at Transylvania, for example, you can see that Sacklerland is an area, and the borders of Sacklerland are a linguistic border, because beyond Sacklerland, most of the people speak Romanian. And when I speak about Sacklerland, that's where most people speak Hungarian. They are ethnic Hungarian minorities. And also when this was our starting point, we could see that Sacklerland is outside of the Romanian development policies. So the Romanian central government does not really put a lot of emphasis on these lands. So 100 years ago, Hungary lost its right to make plans about Transylvania, and this right was given to Romania. But Romania doesn't live with this opportunity. They don't want to develop Sacklerland, and in this moment we are talking about 1,000 million, or in other words, 1 billion euros. It's quite a huge number. It's even hard for me to say it. So in the next 7 years, we have a budget of 1 billion or 1,000 million euros allocated to the development in Romania. And Romania, the Romanian government, has already applied for 80 million, but we don't know how much of the 80 million will be spent on the Sacklerland area. Based on the previous years, we can see that the large majority of the EU funds are only for settlements and communities in Transylvania, which are populated mostly by Romanian-speaking people. And these funds are not targeting the Hungarian villages and communities. When the European Commission actually talked about it, or when we brought this to the attention of the European Commission, it was a very difficult process. He was a member of our working group, Dr. Balázs, who wrote an article in Newsweek, the American paper, and in this article he explained that it seems that the EU focuses on globalism rather than the diversity of the regions, or the diversity, already existing indigenous diversity of the member states. You could see in the last years that the decision-making is now focused on EU institutions. There are 3 levels in the EU level, the member state level, and the regional level. And now more decisions, or the more important decisions, are made on the EU level. Since I sent my study to the Commission, and I sent them for translation as well, we have already witnessed some changes, because when I started with the whole thing and I sat down to write my study, and also we started petitioning and we started collecting signatures, it was actually a difficult process. Even the petition was controlled. And now it seems at the beginning of October that we have managed to go over the threshold. In 3 countries, which are Romania, Hungary, and Croatia, we haven't received feedback, but we are absolutely sure that in the case of these 3 member states, we're going to have an approval. And then we can say that with the approval and the support of these member states, these civil initiatives will start on a new path, and it will be a successful civil initiative. But then the question is, okay, but what will happen after that? When we launched the initiative, we said that we wanted to get into an area where we can fight with European tools for our homeland. When they said that this is a successful civil initiative, then it means that we have managed to set our foot in the arena. But that's where the more difficult part of the work comes, because we have to force the European Commission to pass a decision, to pass legislation. It would be enough for us if the EU simply declared that it recognizes the existence of national regions, and the notion of national region would become a part of the EU acquis. But how can we enforce it? Well, in my opinion, there are several tools that we can use. We have different resources because there are already existing movements in different European regions, and we have to find the ones that we can form an alliance with, and we have to build an alliance of national regions. So we have to build up an institution, a European institution of national regions. And then the EU will have 2 choices. Either they will pass legislation to ensure that these regions will have equal rights and they will have equal access to the development funds, or the EU must face with the fact that as a European institution, these regions will be allowed to take also or apply in tenders and take also some fundings from the European Development Funds. We have gathered 1,400,000 signatures, and that provides sufficient moral background or moral support to organize this European alliance. But one thing I am absolutely sure of, the European Commission will not ignore us anymore, because that's what they tried to do earlier in 2013. Thank you.